Hello, hello, hello. Well, last week, Save to Serve had a special prayer meeting service last Tuesday. And of course, we had a special season of prayer wherein we were praying for those in the path of Hurricane Florence. And as we know, of course, the storm has dissipated. And of course, we don't want our prayers to just consist in only asking. God answered prayers miraculously, and He has delivered many from the storm. And we want to hear from you. We want you to share your testimony of how God protected you, brought you through the storm. So tonight on this prayer meeting, September 18th at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, we want to invite you, and we ask for your feedback. Those of you who were in the path of the storm and God something special for you. We want you to share your experience with us, object lessons you learned, your testimonies, to encourage others that God is a prayer answering God. So please, we want to hear from you, share your testimonies, and for those of you who weren't impacted by the storm, of course, we will be taking prayer requests as well. So we ask you to send in your prayer requests. We want to hear from you. We want to pray for you and with you, because as we see things are wrapping up, we know that we have to be drawing closer to one another, and we have to be much in earnest prayer. So please send in your testimonies and your prayer requests tonight, 7 p.m.
And, while we're here, we want to share with you some significant, startling events that are now transpiring in the world. This past Sabbath, September 15th, I shared with you some statements and also a few videos from the Global Climate Summit. And we shared with you a statement from Nancy Pelosi, the minority leader in the House of Representatives. And basically, Nancy Pelosi stated, as she read from Laudato Si, that it's time to implement the Catholic social teaching of the common good, as well as, now she made a statement that we are to redistribute wealth according to popery. So we went back and we shared the statements from Laudato Si, wherein all the popes have made a statement that, again, the right to private property is not absolute or inviolable. We shared those statements this past Sabbath. And if you notice, as you read on in Laudato Si, and again, the articles are going to be posted shortly below this video here on YouTube. The Pope also said that no person has absolute right over their own bodies. And the context of that was the common good. The context to combat climate change, when the popes and even this present Pope, Pope Francis, made that statement in his encyclical, the context is that nations should enforce a Sunday law to combat climate change. Now that was September 15th, this past Sabbath. Now here is a startling news article. Did you know that the government of India has made a similar statement? That the civilians, the people of India and other parts don't have absolute right over their own bodies? And the context of that statement from the government of India was, one, to combat climate change. Two, to enforce Sunday worship. Yes, I said Sunday worship. The context of that statement from the government of India was to implement biometrics, to improve the economy. And if you don't follow this policy, you can't buy, you cannot sell. Let's share with Safe to Serve International and others these statements here, Hillary.
Yes. Well, there's an article from the Times of India that came out, and it says this: citizens don't have absolute right over their bodies. Now, this was May 3rd, 2017. Also, we have another statement from the Los Angeles Times, and if you recall, Pastor has shared this statement before, but in the context of what we're sharing now, you're going to see the implications of it. And as you can see, the title says that India is a model for the rest of the world, but it says that India is building a biometric database for 1.3 billion people, and enrollment is mandatory. It says, she had come to secure her ticket to India's digital future, to enroll in the identity program called Aadhaar, or Foundation, that aims to record the fingerprints and irises of all 1.3 billion Indian residents. Nearly 9 out of 10 Indians have registered, each assigned a unique 12-digit number that serves as a digital identity that can be verified with the scan of a thumb or an eye. If she didn't get a number, she worried that she wouldn't be able to eat. Indians now need an Aadhaar number to pay taxes, collect pensions, and obtain certain welfare benefits. Supporters say the program, which has cost about $1 billion to implement, will save multiples of that by curbing tax evasion and ensuring that welfare subsidies are not stolen by middlemen. This month, lawyers opposing Aadhaar argued before the Supreme Court that the government could not force Indians to share their biometric data. Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi countered that Indians had no constitutional right to privacy and could not claim an absolute right over their bodies.
So as we can see, the proof is right there, my friends. And it's interesting as we move on that there are more startling articles coming out from the country of India. And as we can see, it is a model for the New World Order system, movement. It's a model for the no buy, no sale. It's a model to take away our civil and religious freedom. It's a model to enforce a Sunday worship by law to combat so-called climate change. Let's notice again.
Okay, so the New York Times came out with an article that says the following. India's Big Brother, fingerprint and eye scans required for food and medicine. Next, we see another article that came out, and it says the Prime Minister Narendra Modi launches 75 cashless townships across 12 states. Again, BBC News came out with another article, why India wiped out 86% of its cash overnight. And then we see WhatsApp. WhatsApp starts, and this came out earlier this year, WhatsApp starts digital payment tests in India. It says, WhatsApp starts digital payment tests in India. WhatsApp has finally started testing the digital payments feature it's been working on since early 2017. The Facebook-owned chat app is currently giving a limited number of users in India the chance to give its built-in payments feature a spin.
And we know that this is the precursor to the cashless society. And where's Facebook and WhatsApp now running this beta testing? In which country?
In India.
India. And now we are going to see that India is also launching a movement to combat climate change. And in order to combat climate change, the government of India has stated that they must worship the sun. I said it. They must worship the sun. And what a connection. Pope Francis, in his Laudato Si encyclical, stated, in order to combat climate change, what must the governments of the world enforce, Hillary?
A national Sunday law. So we see here from an article that came out on the Indian Express earlier this year, a few months ago, the headline says that India co-hosts first Solar Alliance meet. Prime Minister Modi says 100 GW by 2022. For millions of years, the sun, S-U-N, has been giving light and life to the world. From Japan to Peru, France to Rome, Egypt and the Eastern civilization, the sun has been given utmost importance, he said. But in Indian viewpoint, for thousands of years, the sun has been the unparalleled center. In India, The Vedas, for thousands of years, have considered the sun the soul of the world. In India, the sun is considered the nourisher. Now that we are looking for a way to deal with the challenge of climate change, we have to look back at ancient view of balance and perspective, he added. Swaraj used 5 Sanskrit names for the sun god while speaking of India's push for solar energy. Quote, I would like to bow before the sun god and address him by 5 different names in Sanskrit. You see the names right there. This means, O sun god, we bow before you. You illuminate the external and the internal world, and you are the best to be adored and worshipped. May you bless us, she said with folded hands.
And here we see who were the ones present at this meeting. As you can see, it says the ISA was attended by 21 heads of states and heads of government, several top ministers and bureaucrats, apart from participants from multilateral banks and the United Nations. So we can see it is clear, brothers and sisters, where we are in this earth's history. And there are many individuals who might be outraged that these countries, Nancy Pelosi, the Pope, and others are pushing for a enforcing of a Sunday law to combat so-called climate change, as well as they are saying the right to private property is not absolute or inviolable. And secondly, we don't have absolute right over our own bodies. You might be outraged. You might be incensed as you read and saw these news articles. But let me just say this. Based on Revelation 13, verse 15 through verse 17, the majority in the world are going to be compelled to worship the image of the beast, to worship on Sunday, to renounce God's 7-day Sabbath, or else they cannot buy or sell. And the majority of those who will receive the mark of the beast in order to buy and sell, they will give up their absolute control and right over their mind as well as over their bodies. And the reason why we say this is because of Genesis chapter 47. Verse 14 through verse 18, in the days of Pharaoh and Joseph, when money failed and there was an economic crisis, there was a food crisis, the Bible tells us the people turned to the government of Egypt and said, buy us so that we can eat and we can live and survive. So what did they give up?
They gave up their bodies. They gave up their bodies.
There's so much more that we can say right now, but we simply wanted to bring these two things to you. The latter part of this coming crisis and what's going on. India is now that model for the world. And we will say more in the near future, as well as the first point we spoke about, this coming Tuesday prayer meeting at 7 o'clock rather, yes, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be having a special prayer meeting. Just give us a quick.
Yes, we want to hear testimonies. Yes, we want to hear testimonies for those directly impacted by Florence and how God has brought you through that, how he has protected you and your family, object lessons that you learned, etc. And of course, for everybody else, we would encourage you to send in your prayer request as well so that we can pray together. We want to hear from you. We want to pray with you. And we thank you for your prayers. We thank you for your comments. We do see your comments. So good morning, everyone. May God keep us watchful and prayerful and faithful, because we know that his coming is even at the doors.
And friends, just keep those comments coming in below this video on YouTube. Let's keep those comments. Tell us what you think about the current events that we just shared, as well as the crisis that is nearing. And until we meet again here at Safe to Serve and Prophesy again, may God richly bless you. Maranatha, until we meet again. God bless.
God bless.